It's month 5 of the Vortex Block of the Month Sew Along by Legit Kits. This is a super easy month. There's only 4 blocks and no assembly required. I will show you a couple tricks as always, so stick around, get your blocks ready, and let's sew. I will also show you what I'm doing with my scraps as I go. So as always, we start with our diagrams. We have a picture of the 4 finished blocks. And there's the diagram from the pattern side and from the finished quilt side. We have our color lists and then our cut guides. And again, these are not to be used as actual templates. They are not to scale, but they're nice to reference as we're cutting our fabric. So I'm going to use the same process I have been using and just pull from the top of the stack. Because there's not a lot of colors in each monthly pack, I can just go through and cut just from the stack. I don't have to worry about organizing. I don't really have to worry about keeping track of a lot. I'm just going to cut my colors as they come off the stack, and I can use the cut guide to ensure that I'm cutting everything I need from that one piece of fabric. So now that I have all of my fabric cut, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew. Again, just like we've always done in numerical order, number 1 is already pinned to the back of my pattern and number 2 is next on the stack. And then I'll fold back on the sewing line and make my creases and use that to mark where I put my pattern on top of the fabric. So this is the same process. I'm going to just sew these all up, and you can watch at a little bit faster speed, and then I'll show you what I'm doing with my scraps and how I'm using all of my leftover fabric to make something very special. When it comes time to add the 4 blocks together, I'm not going to do a whole lot of pinning because there's just not a lot of key intersections. There's just a couple. And if your sewing and ironing is accurate, your blocks coming together will be pretty accurate as well. So I'm really just doing the pin and point method at each end. And then I will put a couple pins in to make sure that the seam allowances line up on each side. But other than that, I don't have to pin like crazy because there's just not a lot to line up on these blocks. These are really simple blocks this month. So here's what I'm doing with all of the scraps that I have from my blocks so far. I need to make some scrappy blocks to use as the quilt dress. So if you missed it, I have my whole quilt dress process recorded and posted, but this is what I did because I technically used one of the Vortex quilts that I made to make the front and back panels of the dress. And then I needed more sections, more blocks to make the side panels. And I had all of this fabric. The quilt kits are so generous with the fabric. I had so much fabric left over that I just decided to piece them together into actual blocks to match the size of the blocks in the Vortex. And that way it would be consistent. So instead of kind of making like this random crazy quilt to use, I just made random blocks. So that way at least the size of the blocks would stay consistent. When I look at the dress now, I really can't tell which blocks were original Vortex blocks and which blocks are scrap blocks. And I even made the scrap blocks and the Vortex blocks, but you just can't tell because they all run together. So I'm taking just some leftover pattern pages. These are from a different project that I ended up not using. And I'm using my scrap fabric, and some of them I use, as large pieces. Some of them I piece together before adding to the block, and you just kind of have fun with it. I did try and keep it in order of colors that matched the order of colors in the Vortex. So as I'm piecing my blocks and my colors together, I sectioned out the greens and the reds and tried to keep them in order so that it would line up a little better with the way the Vortex is pieced. So if you've missed the quilt dress videos, go watch those and you'll see what I'm talking about here. But this is just such a fun way to use up scrap fabric. But by using the foundation paper piecing paper, you can get some consistently sized blocks, and it works really well for this process. So I think I'll end up using it again in the future. That's month 5. Do you see where it's going? So we finished this quadrant, months 1 through 4, and we're starting on this upper quadrant now. Next month is another easy month with just 4 blocks that are all solid pieces. I love those months. Month 7 does have 1 block that has 2 assembly pieces instead of just 1, but it's still not a difficult one, and we'll cover it when we get to it. I'll see you next month. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and feel free to comment with any questions or message me on Instagram, Facebook, or even through my website, crankykangaroo.com.